Las Vegas, Nevada, the city that never sleeps. This is Chris Marlowe inviting you to join me for one of the most unusual sporting events of the year. From Binion's Horseshoe Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas, it's the World Series of Poker.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to poker's main event. 4 days ago, 194 players paid $10,000 each to enter this competition. That makes the total prize money just under $2 million, with $835,000 going to the eventual champion. Now, so far, there have been a few surprises. Last year's two finalists, the defending world champion Phil Hellmuth Jr. and two-time winner Johnny Chan, are out. So the field is a little different this year. Two-time winner Stu Unger of New York City landed at the final table once again after a 10-year absence. He received $25,050 for ninth place. Next to fall was John Bonetti of Houston, an early favorite who received $33,400 for eighth place. Rod Pete of Portland, Oregon was next to drop, getting $50,100 for seventh place. Al Crux of Syracuse, New York fell victim to a series of bad cards, landing in sixth place with $58,450 in prize money. Barry Johnston won it all in 1986, but he could do no better than fifth this year, getting $75,150. And we're now down to these four players. Jim Ward of Anchorage, Alaska is a newcomer to the final table and a definite underdog. It will take some unusually strong play and a lucky run of cards for him to win the championship. Hans Tuna Lund of Reno, Nevada is a popular pro who has the most chips and is a strong favorite to win it all. Dave Crunkleton of Gastonia, North Carolina is another newcomer to the World Series. He's been playing incredibly well and demonstrates an aggressive style of play. And finally, Mansour Matloube from London, England. He's one of a growing number of international players who come to the World Series. You know, there's a big difference in prize money between first and second place here at the World Series of Poker. The winner gets $835,000. The runner-up, $334,000. As I bring in our expert poker analyst, David Chip Reese, that's a big difference, $500,000.
It doesn't take a poker analyst to know that $500,000 is a lot of money, Chris. If I were one of those two players sitting there at the final table, there's two things I'd be thinking about. First of all, the money, $500,000. And secondly, trying to beat that guy across the table from me. Because if I did, I'd be the next world champion in Binion's World Series of Poker. If he's thinking about the money, he's in big trouble, because you can't think what those chips mean during a poker game. You can't think what they'll buy. You have to wait till it's over. It's just a game, and you got to beat that guy across the table from you.
Chips are just the tools, your implements, right?
Absolutely.
All right, we have a hand developing here. Jim Ward and Mansour Matloube is all in. So Jim Ward, up to him to call. Chip, your evaluation of this hand, what you can see of it.
This is before the flop. Mansour, I think, has moved in for a $139,000 raise, which means he's pretty low on chips. He's probably got a little pair in the pocket, or maybe ace in another card, or two big cards.
And Jim Ward, who we look at in the white shirt there, pondering what to do.
Yeah, Jim knows what Mansour's got. He knows what he has to beat, and what he has to decide is which hand does he have, and he's going to probably think about and look at Mansour and wonder whether he's a little panicky right now. If Mansour's lost some chips recently and he's a little panicky, he may have shoved his money on a little weaker hand than he normally would, and that's what Jim's thinking about right now.
Quick evaluation of Ward
Jim's
as a player.
A very, very solid player, very cool player. He's played in a lot of tournaments. He's not afraid to call this money. He's not thinking about the money right now. He wants to win the tournament.
And it appears
he's not
that
thinking
Ward
about a new
will
car
call.
right now. He looks like he's going to call, but poker players tend to do that a lot. They break the money out, and they'll almost call, and then they pull it back sometimes. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Is Mansour known to bluff at all?
Oh, yeah. Mansour is a very lively player. He plays in all the big limit games outside the tournament, and he's very creative. He's liable to have anything there. And he's a bit of an actor, too, if you watch him right now. He could be trying to lead Jim into calling or not calling. He's a little trying to appear nervous, so he might have a pretty good hand.
Now, Jim Ward started this day in seventh place, $192,000.
We got a pot. Let's see what we got. I can't see him.
Jim Ward. All right, here are the hands. Ace-Queen for Mansour.
This is a pick'em hand. We've got 2 threes against ace-queen. The 2 threes is a very, very small favorite in this hand, but it's very, very close. Either person could win. If you ran this hand out 1,000,000 times, the 2-3s would win a little bit of money. But with one hand, anything can happen.
All right, we're await the flop. 3 cards in the middle of the table.
This is a classic hold'em hand in a tournament. Pair against 2 overcards. Jim wants to win this tournament, but he's been here before.
So a very nervous Jim Ward. Here we
We've
go
always
with the
felt
flop.
this kind of pressure. Came nothing. Jim Ward's a pretty big favorite right now. Mansour has to catch an ace or a queen to win this pot.
Once again, Ward with the 2-3s. Mansour has ace-queen. 4th Street coming up next.
He catches the ace. Incredible. I mean, that was a very big long shot. And look at Jim. He doesn't even flinch. That shows that he's a real pro. Now, the only way Jim Ward can win is to catch a 3. He's a 20-to-1 underdog to catch a 3.
Jim Ward needs a 3 to salvage this hand. 5th Street.
Nothing, and Mansour wins the pot.
So
Ace and the fours
Mansour,
with a queen.
the man from London, England, wins a big pot. And he breathes a sigh of relief. So perhaps the surprise of this year's World Series of Poker right now, Dave Crunkleton. Crunkleton from Gastonia, North Carolina. And he, perhaps in first place, moments ago had 900,000 chips.
Tuna's just opened the pot. Looks like about 20,000. Dave calls it.
How important are these smaller pots?
They're everything. This is what determines who wins and loses the tournament. The blinds are the money that you put in the pot. They're like antes, or the money you put in the pot before the hand starts. As play goes on, every 2 hours or so, the amount of money that those blinds double. Looks like they're playing 6 and 12,000, which means there's at least $18,000 in the pot. So if you win 10 of those little hands, it doesn't seem like much watching on the outside, but that adds up to $180,000 and can make a significant difference in who wins the tournament.
So that means you cannot stay out of the hand.
No.
You're losing a significant amount of money every time the rotation goes around.
Absolutely, Chris. You must play much more aggressively at this point when it gets down to 4-handed.
So Tuna does call the 45,000.
Yeah.
Tuna with the magenta hat and the blue shirt.
There's 3 hearts out on the board now. There's a possible flush. There's a pair on the board, so somebody could have as much as a full house.
Checks. Tuna shows kings and 4s.
Tuna had a king.
Tuna's going to win the hand.
He wins the pot.
The hand goes to Tuna. Tuna building up a nice mountain of chips. How much money would you estimate he has now, Chip?
Well, he probably won maybe 100,000 in that pot. He might be up to around 700,000. I make Tuna one of the favorites right now at this stage because Tuna knows what you have to do when it's down to a short-handed game. He's a very, very aggressive player, and if I was a betting man, I would bet that Tuna will be in more pots than any of these guys from now on.
The premier event here at the World Series of Poker is Texas Hold'em, the big game, the $10,000 buy-in. And perhaps, Chip, you can explain simply exactly how the game is played.
It's a lot like 7-card stud, Chris. Most people are probably more familiar with that game, where in 7-card stud you get 2 down, 4 up, and the last card down. The best high hand wins the pot. Texas Hold'em is almost the same thing. Everybody gets 2 cards down, but then 3 cards are turned up in the center of the table. Those are community cards, which everybody uses along with their own 2-hole cards. The 4th, there's a bet made, a 4th card is turned up, another bet made, and the 5th card is turned up. So in essence, it's like 7-card stud. You get 7 cards, and the best high hand wins. Jim Ward's moved all in, and Dave Crunkleton's thinking about calling him. I think he is going to call him.
All right, here we go.
We've got a big pot here.
Jim Ward is all in, and he's going to be called by Dave Crunkleton. So Jim Ward, he's a little low on chips also, Chip. He has to make a move, and he's made it.
146,000 he just bet, Chris, and Dave Crunkleton's calling him. That means if Jim Ward can win this pot, he'll double his chips and have over 300,000, be back in contention.
Now, Ward can survive a hit, but he can also take, Crunkleton can survive the hit, but Ward, this would take him out.
This is the gunfight at the OK Corral for Jim Ward right now.
Ward started the day with $192,000, and here we go. Each player is putting in $146,000. Nice little pot out there, Chip, as we get set for the flop.
Dave Crunkleton has 2 queens.
2 queens,
2 queens for Crunkleton.
and the ace jack of diamonds.
Odds on this
Dave
particular hand?
Crunkleton's about a 2-to-1 favorite right now.
Jack.
Jack and 2 sixes. It means Dave Crunkleton has queens and sixes. Jim Ward has jacks and sixes. Jim has to catch a jack or an ace or he's out of the tournament.
So Ward needs a jack or an ace to stay alive. Crunkleton looking to knock Ward out of the tournament. And we're getting set for 4th Street. This is a common card.
Here it comes.
Fourth card is a 4.
Now this gives Jim Ward still a chance to win the pot if he catches an ace or a jack.
1 of 5 possibilities. Jack.
Ward needs an ace or a jack.
The king comes on in.
And
Dave
Ward is... So Jim Ward took a chance, and Dave Crunkleton knocked him out. Pair of queens. Queens and sixes, actually, the winning hand. But a great performance by the man from Anchorage, Alaska, Jim Ward.
Jim Ward's a great player, and I know he'll be back next year. He's going to win this tournament someday.
Joining me now, one of the most famous poker players of all time. He won this event in 1976 and 1977. 2-time winner Doyle, Texas Dolly Brunson. And Doyle, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
How'd you do this year?
I think I was about the 90th or something like that. Went out pretty early.
Sometimes it's just not there for you, is it?
No, it hadn't been for me for the last few years. I've had trouble accumulating chips starting off. And if you don't get any chips to start with, you know, you're pretty well handicapped.
Is poker a more respected profession than it used to be, and why?
Definitely. Well, I think it's a lot due to the World Series of Poker and all the publicity. You know, when I first started, we played in the back rooms a lot, and I can still remember meeting friends from college days, and they'd actually turn their head to keep from saying hello to me because I chose poker as a profession. And it was kind of hurtful back then. Now then, the same people, they want to come around, you know, and shake your hand and everything, and I just take it with a grain of salt.
Someone told me you made $1 million one night in a side game.
I've done that several times. Well, a side game is a game outside of the tournament play. It's a game usually at the tournaments where a lot of times it's casino operators, owners, and rich guys, foreigners, you know, and sheiks and so forth. And if you can get in those games, they're usually pretty lucrative. And I think the most I ever won, I think, was $1.7 million one time. But I've also had some awfully big losses.
In one night?
One night, yeah. Oh, I say one night. It was like 2 or 3 days, but it was the same game. We played with that equipment.
Doyle, great to reminisce with
Thank you, great.
Congratulations. We'll see you at this final table next year, right?
I hope so.
All right. Let's pick up the action as the stakes are getting just a little bit higher and the competition a little more exciting. What goes through your mind when you're out there with a fairly good hand, and yet you see your opponent go all in, right?
Well, there's a couple things that go through your mind. The first thing is, if I lose this hand, I have to leave here.
And that's the biggest, how do I get home?
And this tournament lasts about 3 weeks, and it's the least fun thing to do is have to walk away from that table
Yeah.
and walk out of the tournament area. So you say, do I really want to play this hand? I'm having fun.
You know, it's interesting. They pay you off in cash after you lose. I've seen players, they walk out, they forget they're even supposed to pick up their money.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then, oh yeah, I better get back here and get my money.
If you ever can imagine what a daze is, this is it when you get knocked out of a
that
tournament.
right?
I mean, you feel like you're in a fog as you leave the area. Looks like Mansour has just moved all in. See how much he's betting here. Looks like about $120,000. He desperately needs to win a pot. Looks like he's going to get called by Dave. Dave's going to try and single-handedly take care of everybody here.
Crunkleton has been on a hot streak.
It's the Crunkleton Crunch.
So it's the Mansour and Dave Crunkleton going head-to-head here as Hans Tunalund content to sit this one out.
Tuna will wait and try and hope that you always hope that the player low on chips gets knocked out, so it eliminates one player.
Dave has queen 9 of clubs.
It's a very close hand. Mansour has 2 8s. Dave has the queen 9 of clubs. Anybody could win this hand.
What are the odds on this particular hand?
It's very close. It's almost like flipping a coin.
Queen 9 of clubs against 2 8s.
All right, here we come with a flop. 3 common cards in the middle of the table.
Please see your pin a second, Chip.
That's Dave Crunkleton in the beige. Mansour has stood up.
Flop is 9, 10, tray.
So
Dave,
pair of nines.
Dave Crunkleton has made 2 nines. He's now a prohibitive favorite over Mansour. Unless a miracle happens, Mansour is going to be eliminated.
What does Mansour
He
need?
needs to catch an 8 or 2 running cards to make a straight possible. But right now, the only way he can win is with an 8.
Dave Crunkleton in command as we await 4th Street.
Fourth card is a queen.
It's a queen. Now that gives Dave queens and nines, but Mansour can now win with a jack or an 8. If a jack comes, he makes a queen high straight, or if an 8 comes, he makes 3 8s. He has 6 cards he can catch, 4 jacks or 2 8s.
Still a chance for Mansour from London, England, to pull it out. 5th Street, the final card. That's an 8! And Mansour stays alive!
He's just caught a miracle card to stay in this tournament, Chris. That's what this tournament's all about.
And a big pot. How much money in this particular
There has
pot?
to be at least $250,000 in this pot, maybe more.
So Mansour Matloubi takes a sigh.
Mansour's just breathed a sigh of relief, and I know how he feels. You don't expect to catch a card like that in this situation.
Well, odds of that card coming up in that situation.
He's approximately a 6 or 7 to 1 underdog to catch that card. That means out of every 7 or 8 hands played, that card's going to come up one time. He could have caught a jack also, which increased his odds a little bit.
With me is Wendine Eolis. And Wendine, being a woman in a man's world, is it difficult?
I don't find it really difficult. I find it rather fun.
Uh-huh. Well, when you first started playing poker, there had to be a stigma attached, not only to men playing poker, but how about a woman challenging a man in a man's world?
Well, I think there was a lot of skepticism about whether or not, as a woman, I would be interested and able to compete. But I think as time went along, people began to understand that I had a real enthusiasm for the game and a passion about being competitive in it.
If you were at this final table right now, how would you play against this field? Is there a certain philosophy you would use, or would it be an individual philosophy as challenges came up?
Well, these gentlemen at this table are, by and large, very highly seasoned and experienced players who are themselves are not going to be entirely predictable, and there's no substitute for really watching their game, watching their body language, their eye contact, and the way they're playing hands this morning.
Wendine, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are now down to the final moments of this year's World Series of Poker.
First prize this year's tournament is $835,000.
You might notice in the right-hand corner of your screen a solid gold bracelet from Neiman Marcus, and that is the gold bracelet that will go to the World Series of Poker champion at the end of this competition. And certainly a bracelet that everyone wants to have, Chip.
More than the gold itself, just the idea of what that bracelet represents means a lot more than what it's worth.
Once again, we are down to 3 players, Hans Tuna Lund, Dave Crunkleton, and Mansour Matloubi. 3 different fellows from 3 different pieces of real estate. Hans Tuna Lund from right here in Reno, Nevada. He's the local favorite. Dave Crunkleton from Gastonia, North Carolina. And Mansour Matloubi from London, England. So another small pot goes by.
The world's pretty well represented here. We got what's really good about this tournament is over the last 2 or 3 years, we've really had a big influx of people from Europe and all around the world coming to play in this tournament. We've gotten to know all the players, and it's really helped poker internationally too.
How would you evaluate the foreign players? What kind of mental makeup do they have?
I think initially when they first started playing in our games, they didn't have the mathematical backgrounds that the American players had. They weren't as solid fundamentally, but on the other hand, intuitively, they were great. I mean, they played a lot of psychology, and I think that we've learned a lot from each other as a result of that. See the way he's chopping on those antes now? That's what we call chopping.
Yeah.
Hans is not going to try and get involved in any big pots. Basically what Hans will try and do is he will overbet the size of the pot when he comes in,
right,
making it difficult for anybody to call without a good hand.
One of the most famous names in the world of poker, Amarillo Slim Preston. He won the title here in 1972. Slim, it's been a while since you've been back at the final table. Why?
Oh, no reason why. This is very difficult to do. Man, I'll tell you, they cut through some high timber to get down to the tail end of this. And yet I'm not disappointed in the least in it because I have won some of the other major tournaments. Now, granted, this is the one everyone wants to win. And but boy, it's hard to do. Gee whiz, now I had a good trip this time. I won one of the other tournaments, which was probably an upset. But still, this is where everybody wants to be.
Do you play in some of the side games that take place?
Yeah, that's where it is. That's where it is, because there you've got a chance to run you a toothpick into the lumberyard. Man, you can get a hold of something in there.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, you're welcome.
3 players still have a shot at the title. The World Series of Poker champion, Hans Lund from Reno, Nevada, Dave Crunkleton, Gastonia, North Carolina, and you're looking at Mansour Matloubi from London, England. He's made quite a comeback. First cards are out.
Dave has just opened the pot for appears to be $60,000. Mansour throws his hand away.
Is there pressure on Crunkleton now?
A lot of pressure on Dave right now. It's becoming a 2-horse race. He's got to make something happen. Mansour and Tuna have all the chips.
Crunkleton with the beige outfit.
He's getting called by Tuna.
And we're getting set for the flop. 3 common cards once again.
Flop is 10-9-5 with 2 spades. There's all kinds of possibilities out there. A straight, a flush, or somebody could have 3 of a kind. Dave has just bet all his chips, $270,000. Tuna calls. We've got a pot here.
And here we go.
We're going to have about a $600,000 pot here, $600,000 or $700,000.
So it's Crunkleton and Lund. Heads up. Flop is already out. We're waiting for Street. Up at the odds now, Chip.
I have to see what their hands are first. I don't know if they've
Okay,
turned them
I'm
up
waiting
yet.
for them to turn over their cards.
Dave blocked 2 tens, and he also has a queen. Right now, Tuna has the best hand with 10s and 9s.
Dave needs a queen to win this pot. Tuna has 10s and 9s. He has the best hand. Dave has 2 10s with a queen kicker. He needs to catch 2 spades, 2 running cards to a straight, or a queen to win this pot. He's a big underdog right now. Tuna's a big favorite.
4th card coming up.
4th card's the 8 of spades. Tuna still has the best hand, but this gives Dave Crunkleton a tremendous amount of opportunities. He can catch a spade, a jack, or a queen to win this pot. He's got about 15 cards he can catch to win this pot.
Crunkleton needs to draw out on 5th Street. Here we go.
A 9. He gives Tuna a full house, and Tuna wins the pot.
So Hans Tuna Lund knocks out Dave Crunkleton. And the crowd chanting Tuna.
Tuna, they say. They're behind their man, Tuna. Great performance by Dave Crunkleton, I might add. I mean, he hasn't played that much poker. He really did a great job.
And Hans Tuna Lund, loving every minute of it. What a hand. All right, one of the 2 men in the finals of the World Series of Poker, Hans Tuna Lund from nearby Reno, Nevada, and the fans have made you their personal favorite.
Well, I don't know about that. There's a lot of fans out there for both sides, I believe.
Now, you're a relative newcomer, first time in the big game, the final table.
First time here at the World Series in the 10,000, yes.
Strategy against the Mansour in the final.
I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. We'll have to wait and see. That's all I can say about that.
Hans Tuna Lund going for the kill. Going up against Hans Tuna Lund in this final, Mansour Matloubi from London, England. And Mansour, you were down to your last chips there. You caught that 8, and you are a man that has been rejuvenated.
That's right. You have to get lucky. If you don't get lucky, you won't win anything.
Now, what about strategy? You have about $800,000 in chips. How will you approach Hans Lund?
I think we're both open players. I think we'll be moving pretty fast. I don't think you have to wait too long to see an outcome to this. We won't be waiting for the best hand all the time. We'll be moving pretty fast.
You enjoy the one-on-one game? This is what you look forward to?
Yes, that's in this no limits hold'em. This is the best part of it, and this is the most, for me, this is the most interesting part. Because it's really one bet.
Hans Lund in the driver's seat at the moment, wearing the purple hat. He has $1,400,000 in chips. The Monsignor, no hat and a light blue shirt, about $700,000.
He's just opened the pot for the minimum, $20,000. Tuna says deal.
Here we go with a flop. The 3 common cards. Pair of 6s, 8 of clubs.
When they both limp in for small bets, there's a chances are somebody might have some of those little cards. It looks maybe like Tuna does. The fourth card's a 10 of hearts.
Tuna bets 20,000. And we may have a raise here.
Mansour raises 40,000.
That's 20,000. Mansour raises 40.
So, pot's starting to sweeten up just a bit. And Hans Lund appears that he may call. Maybe not, though.
He called.
He does. And now, fifth straight. Jack of diamonds.
Jack of diamonds. It's no real apparent help unless somebody had a jack in their hand. If they had a straight, they probably already had it. Looks like Mansour will be the aggressor in this pot. This pot's probably got about 160,000 in it right now.
Hans Lund is the leader. You're looking at him right now. Playing against Mansour Matlube. Pressure is on both these men. One of the men is going to win the World Series of Poker title. He will be the champion and win $835,000. The other will not be the champion, and he will go home with $334,000. So a big difference, $500,000 will separate these two at the end.
And Mansour has just bet $100,000, so all the pressure's on Tuna right now to decide what to do. And
What kind
he's
of a
thinking,
player is Tuna?
a good player. That's the best way I can describe him. He's a good, aggressive player, and he's been here before.
Thinking about calling is Lund. Got a lot of chips in front of him. Nope, he's going to throw it in.
Mansour wins the pot. That'll even things up a little bit.
Perhaps the most recognizable face in the entire sport of poker, two-time World Series of Poker winner Johnny Chan. He finished second last year. Johnny, most of the players we've been talking to say it's much tougher to survive the first couple of days. Once you get rolling, it's a little easier.
Absolutely, because you got a lot of chips to play with, and you get the feel of the game mentally and physically, and now you can figure each player out.
The philosophy of Johnny Chan when he plays, when you sit down, what is your philosophy?
To win, to read my opponents, how they play, know when they're bluffing, when they're not bluffing. Just pick my spots in the right time. And
You're famous now, the famous Johnny Chan. You're the man. Everybody wants to play against you. What is it like when you go into, someplace to play? I mean, what kind of respect do you get, or what kind of feeling do you get when people sit down with you?
oh, I love it. They just love to beat me, and they give me action. Unbelievable. I mean, they just throw monies at me. So they always want to play against the best, and so that's what poker's all about. I mean, it's not like boxing or tennis. Once you're best, they got to bring next like a challenger. In poker, I can sit down and play as long as you got money. You're welcome to the game.
Johnny Chan, as always, thank you very much.
Pleasure, Chris.
Johnny Chan, one of the greats of all time. Cards are out. Hans Lund from Reno, Nevada. On the left, Mansour Matlube on the right from London, England.
I'd like to point out, Chris, that when they play heads up, whoever has the dealer button has to open first before the flop because he's put less money in the pot than the other guy. But once the flop takes place, then the person to the left of the button has to act first. Mansour's raised at 80,000. Tuna throws his hand away, and Mansour wins that ante.
Mansour Matlube from London, England, going heads up against Hans Lund. Lund wearing the purple hat. His nickname is Tuna. Why do they call him that?
Well, I think he tried to present himself as an image of being a fish. In gambling terms, they say a guy that's an easy mark is a tuna fish. And Tuna wanted everybody to always think that he wasn't a very good player, but we know better now.
Mansour in for 75,000.
Mansour raises 60,000.
And Tuna going to call.
Tuna calls. We've got a pot here.
Pretty good opening bet.
About 150,000 in this pot.
Here comes the flop.
Flop comes 9-4 deuce, 9-4
And a couple of spades, 9-4 deuce.
9-4 deuce and two spades. A lot of possibilities out here.
And the Mansour.
He's going to lead out and bet 100,000. This is a challenging bet. We might have action here.
And it's up to Hans Lund. And here we go, Chip. Pot building up very nicely.
This pot has some potential, Chris, if Tuna does what I think he's going to do, what he's acting like he's going to do.
2 players left
Here
in
he
the World
comes.
Series of Poker, and Lund is moving in.
He raises $250,000. Time for a little sip off the water.
$250,000 bet to Mansour Matloubi. Now he has to decide.
I think if Mansour plays this hand, he's going to have to go all the way. That much money of a raise, Tuna is making him commit all of his chips. This could be the final hand.
Mansour taking his time. What's he thinking about? What's going through his mind right now, Chip?
Well, I think he's thinking, what does Tuna have to make this kind of play? He knows he's not bluffing. He could either have a spade flush draw, he could have a big pair, which is bigger than 9s, or he could possibly have a straight draw, but that's pretty unlikely. Or the ideal hand would be if he had 2 9s in the hole. I think Mansour's got a good hand, but I don't know if it's good enough to call here.
What should he have to call, in your mind?
The minimum hand that Mansour should probably have here would be maybe a 9 with an ace kicker, a real big kicker. That might not even be any
ace 9
good.
higher or a pair.
But if he had a drawing hand like 2 spades, where he could 1 card to a flush with an overcard higher than a 9, we might catch that also. He would probably move all his chips in.
No time limit for a decision, is there?
No, but you know what we do in these no-limit games, Chris? If a player's taking an inordinate amount of time, he can call for a clock, in which case they'll bring a stopwatch over to the table.
Is that right?
Click it for 60 seconds, count to 10 backwards, and if you haven't acted by then, you're out. That's the truth.
So a big decision. For a man who came a long way to participate in this tournament.
Mansour is a restaurant owner from London, England. Tuna is a professional gambler from Reno, Nevada, who's won 2 major Hold'em tournaments in 1978 and 1983.
And here we go.
Here we go.
The Mansour is moving all in. Remember, there are 2 cards left, 4th and 5th Street.
He's called the raise and bet the rest of his chips. We'll find out how much that is in a second.
Now, it's up to Tuna Lund. What will he do?
He'll probably call. Once he's got all this money in, if he wasn't just bluffing completely, he'll probably have to call at this point. He's put too much money out there.
Calls for $250,000 raise, raises $382,000 more.
$382,000, the amount of chips put in by the Mansour.
$64,000
The only way Tuna can't call this is if he was bluffing. There's too many things that Mansour could have that Tuna could beat. There's a lot of possibilities out there.
Now, this bet would not break Hans Tuna Lund, but if Lund wins, then the Mansour will be out, and Lund will be the new World Series of Poker champion. If the Mansour wins, then Lund would still be in, but he would be severely damaged.
Mansour would still be a prohibitive favorite if he won this pot. The fact that Tuna's waiting so long to call means that he doesn't have that great of a hand he's not crazy about, or he would have called immediately in this position.
Lund still deliberating.
Tuna's joking with the crowd. He's in pretty good spirits. Mansour standing up. He knows this might be his last hand.
He's been down to the wire before, almost eliminated earlier. And a packed house here at Binion's Horseshoe Hotel and Casino. Anxiously awaiting, will Hans Lund play this hand? Here he goes, he calls. Tuna is in.
Hans Tuna Lund wins the hand, he's the world champion. If Mansour wins the hand, we'll have 2 players left.
2 10s.
Mansour has 2 10s in the pocket.
9 ace.
You called
Tuna
it, Chip.
had the hand. I said Mansour needed a minimum to call. Mansour has the best hand. Tuna has to catch either a 9 or an ace. Mansour is a big favorite to win this tournament right now.
Mansour has the 10s. Hans Lund with the ace-9. 4th Street coming up.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Fourth card.
Ace!
Caught the ace. Mansour needs to catch a miracle card right now.
Hans Lund on the verge of becoming the World Series of Poker champion.
Mansour is a 20-1 underdog right now. He must catch one of the 2 remaining 10s in the deck to stay alive. Otherwise, Hans Tuna Lund is the new world champion.
Mansour needs a 10. Hans Lund in command. A 10!
Oh my God! It's a 10! I don't believe it, Chris!
Mansour has done it again.
A 20-1 shot to stay alive in this tournament.
He is back from the dead.
This is without question the most incredible hand in the history of the World Series of Poker.
Mansour Matloubi from London, England. And they're dancing in the aisles of Great Britain right now.
In the 15 or so years of the World Series of Poker, there's never been a hand that meant so much money come up like this.
And an obviously deflated Hans Lund. He thought he had it. But the Mansour, he's from London, but he has the luck of an Irishman.
One turn of the card is probably going to cost Tuna $500,000 in the World Championship.
Now remember, Hans Lund is not out, but the Mansour wins a huge pot. We'll get the number on it.
$1,628,000. Tuna only has about $300,000 left in chips.
You have to think that Mansour Matloubi may be blessed. Cards go out. Hans Lund on the left. Mansour Matloubi on the right. Matloubi wearing the green hat. Hans Lund in the purple hat.
Opens the pot for $100,000, Hans Lund.
So a big opening bet by Lund. Now it's up to Matloubi. And Matloubi thinking about it. He may have something down there.
Well, he's going to call, it looks like.
Calling $100,000 is Matloubi.
$266,000 in the pot.
Big hand for Hans Lund as we approach the flop.
7, 6, 8. Possible straight out there right now. They both check. Next card comes a queen. Mansour checks.
And
Tuna
Lund
check.
checks. Fifth Street, 3 diamonds.
No apparent help.
$266,000 in this pot. It's an important one for Lund.
Mansour bets $100,000.
And perhaps Mansour trying to strong arm Hans Lund. Lund has to be very, very careful here.
Tough call on short money when you have the short bankroll. He's calling it, though.
Mansour shows 2 queens. With a jack.
2 queens. That's the winning
And
hand.
Mansour
Now,
wins it. A big hand for the Mansour. The president of Binion's Horseshoe Hotel and Casino and our tournament host is with me now, Jack Binion. Jack, now this year you're offering $835,000 to the winner. Next year you have gone on the record and you say you're going to make sure that the winner wins over $1 million. Tell us about that.
What we're going to do, we're going to guarantee $1 million first prize. And so I think that'll add a lot of excitement to the tournament. And, you know, after all, $1 million is the magic number.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.
The cards are out. Mansour Matloubi, London, England, with the green hat on the right. Hans Lund from nearby Reno, Nevada, on the left.
Tuna races all in.
And Tuna goes all in before the flop.
Over 300,000.
And let's see what the Mansour will do. He's taking a peek and he's standing up. That could mean something big is about to happen. Now Mansour doesn't stand up.
it usually does mean something big.
Yeah,
I mean, I would be
absolutely.
surprised if he didn't call here.
The chip total at this point.
Mansour has $1,640,000 to Tuna's $300,000. Tuna has bet the whole $300,000, Chris. Mansour has to have a pretty decent hand to even think about calling it. At this point, Mansour could tell the crowd what he has because it doesn't matter. Tuna's all in.
Mansour contemplating.
$3,000 raise.
He has won some big hands in this tournament.
Mansour calls.
Mansour calls. This could be the final hand.
All right, here we go.
It's a $700,000 pot, Chris. Mansour has 2 6s. It looks like the best hand.
World Series of Poker coming down to
Tuna hasn't turned his hand up
perhaps
yet.
this hand.
Tuna has 2 4s. Monsieur is about an 8. Tuna's about a 7.5 to 1 underdog to catch a 4 on the flop, just on the flop alone.
Pair of
He needs a
sixes,
4.
pair of 4s. Waiting the flop. Hans, Tuna Lund, and Mansour Matlube. Here we go.
The crowd wants a 4, Chris.
Here comes the flop. Not there.
Deuce 8 queen and 2 clubs, no help. Tuna needs a 4 to stay alive.
4 street coming up. Hans Lund needs a 4. 4 street coming up. King of diamonds. Still no help.
He's dead to a 4, Chris. He's a 20 to 1 underdog at this point.
1 card away. We are going to have a new world champion here at Binion's. Hans Lund needs a 4. Or the title goes to Matlube. Here it is.
Matlube wins.
And Mansour Matlube takes the title. "37 years old. Mansour Matlube, the new king, the new World Series of Poker champion. And your thoughts about the final matchup with Hans Lund? He was a tough opponent, wasn't he?
It was very, very tough, but I suppose towards the end he was hitting, he couldn't win a pot. He was, when you play these games, you go through periods, you don't win any pots at all. He's a very, very good player.
Earlier in the day, you had some miraculous comebacks down to your final chips. You caught an 8, you caught an ace, you caught a 10. You were lucky, but you were very, very good too.
Yes, but every one of those hands that you mentioned, when the chips went in the pot, I had the best hand. The 2 10s against ace 9, the 2 8s against 9 queen. Every time I had the best hand when the chips went in.
What are you going to do with all the money?
I keep playing poker.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mansour Matlube, the new champion in the World Series of Poker. We hope you enjoyed the action here from Binion's Hotel and Casino. I'm Chris Marlar for Chip Reese. So long, everybody.